Erdogan. He's pretty much marginalized them, especially in the first few years. You remember he prosecuted a bunch of them under some kind of trumped-up scandal. So he's been pretty aggressive in emasculating the military. But perhaps in the wake of 14 attacks by Islamic ISIS and by the Kurdish radicals, PKK, 280 people dead in Turkey. Perhaps the military, some new leaders in the military, not the very top, have decided that enough is enough, and they've got to take back this country from Erdogan and his cronies.
You alluded to some of those prosecutions of former military leaders. The previous military coups, there's been 3, 4, if you want to count the most recent one. The army fancied itself as a protector of secular democracy, but this time seems a bit different because the military itself appears to be divided.
Well, that's the way the story seems to be playing out. I can't say how divided it is, because I just don't know enough about the military structure. We do know that a couple of very senior generals have been taken hostage, but that's not surprising, because usually the very top leaders of the military are appointed by and loyal to Erdogan. So you would expect them not to be part of the coup. You would expect the coup to be the next level beneath them.
This is happening in Turkey, on the doorstep to Europe, a gateway to Middle Eastern conflicts. Turkey's already been rocked by instability. If there is indeed a successful coup, what are the international ramifications?
It all depends. I mean, if this coup can stick somehow, and it's not clear to me it will, but if it can stick, it might provide a breathing space where they can cool down some of the flames that are engulfing the country. I mean, Erdogan and his professor, who later became foreign minister, who later became prime minister, who was then sacked, Ahmed Davutoglu, talked about zero problems with their neighbors. And the first thing they do is go and make a fight with Israel, and then they make a fight with Assad, then they make a fight with Russia, shoot down a Russian jet. They fight with everybody. So it's unclear to me whether a military interlude could be worse than a leader like Erdogan, who is marching this country toward a dictatorship. I mean, it's clear that he has demonstrated authoritarian impulses, and he wraps himself up tonight in the garb of a populist calling on the people. But his behavior for the last 4 or 5 years has been very much not of the people, but about himself, and he's even become intolerant toward his own friends. Power corrupts, absolutely, when you have absolute power, and he is trying to get absolute power through an amendment to the Constitution that will give the president executive authority and thereby emasculate the prime minister.
Now, at the same time, we heard President Erdogan call on his supporters to descend into the streets, and we're looking at live images now that show the streets flooded with people and climbing on top of military tanks. It's too early to say if those are indeed pro-Erdogan supporters or not, but does it appear that Erdogan might have the upper hand now, and this coup may indeed be about to end in failure?
Could happen that way. If it does, you have to give the guy credit for getting on his iPhone, or was it a Samsung? I couldn't tell. Getting on his phone and talking to the people and mobilizing the people who he's been, ignoring for the past few years. Now he needs them, and he's able to mobilize them. It's hard to say. We'll have to see how organized the coup leaders are and how cool they are, how steadfast they are. If they give in to some of the international demands, and if they give in to the street, then they are lost. But if they persevere and hold steady, they might be able to pull this off. Hard to say.
It's an interesting choice of words that Erdogan is relying on the people now when he's been so heavily criticized for cracking down on democratic freedoms and civil liberties. Is there a chance that if Erdogan beats this coup, he will only strengthen his grip on power?
Of course, yeah. He will become like a god, you know. It's like he's come back from the dead, you know. It looks like he's down and out, and then he comes back on the iPhone and creates a counter coup. This reminds me a lot although there are differences. In Indonesia, they had a coup, an attempted coup, and then a counter coup when President Suharto came to power, and then he ruled for 32 years after that. And there were more than 500,000 people killed as a result of that counter coup. This is not going to happen in Turkey, but these coups can go in crazy directions. It's just so unpredictable right now. But one thing is for sure, this is a very important seminal moment in Turkish history.